Couple of housekeeping matters. I'll be introducing the speakers one at a time. They have 20 minutes for their presentation, which will allow for questions at the end of each panel presentation. And then after that, we'll be asking the presenters to come up on stage so that we should have another session then for questions from the floor. We have a roving mic, so at the end of the session when you are asking questions, if you could just wait until you receive the mic. This is being streamed online, so if you don't talk into the microphone, those that are watching online won't hear it. It's very important that we do keep to time because we are running these panel sessions concurrently. If everybody could make sure that their mobile phones are turned off. All right. Okay, sorry. So I'll introduce my first speaker, who is Lee Way. He's the Senior Policy Officer from the Circular Economy Markets, New South Wales Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water. And Lee will be talking to us today about empowering the New South Wales Government agencies to transition to a circular economy. I'd like you to welcome Lee.
Over $40 billion each year is what New South Wales Government spends on goods, services and infrastructure. Right now, we have one of the biggest opportunities to transition New South Wales to a circular economy. I'm Lee Way and I'm Senior Policy Officer in the Circular Economy Markets team at the New South Wales Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water. We were here last year and I've come back to provide an update on some of our circular economy initiatives. Today, I will go over the program background for the Circular Economy Markets team at New South Wales DQ. Second, True Circular funding and how we are supporting government agencies and their circularity journey. 3, the recycled material procurement initiatives we are implementing in New South Wales DQ. And 4, beyond recycled material, the procurement guidance and capability building resources we have created. So for the policy context in New South Wales, we have the WASM, which is the Waste and Sustainable Materials Strategy 2041. This sets out the vision for transitioning to a circular economy over the next 20 years. On the recycled material front, this has committed New South Wales government departments to procure products that contain recycled content on if not, why not basis, where there's no significant additional costs or negative impact on performance or the environment. Also to report on the use of recycled content in government procurement and its associated impacts on emissions and waste reduction. Our team, the Circular Economy Markets team, is leading the implementation of this requirement. On the circular design front, we have been busy working with the property and infrastructure sector to develop tools, guidance to promote circular design and practices within New South Wales Government by identifying circular design principal opportunities in new builds, infrastructure, and precincts. These are program objectives to implement our recycled material requirements. We want to target materials that have low recycling rates and values. These are our priority materials selected due to the federal waste export ban, strategic government commitments, and emerging waste streams. We want to be able to complement well-functioning recycling markets. By this, we want to play a supporting role to help challenging materials to be recycled. We want to help build supply and demand concurrently to build robust local recycling markets by using government purchasing power. We want to indicate the demand for recycled products to suppliers to be able to develop these products. We hope to develop new high-value use of materials. By this, we want to retain the value of materials and make high-order products. To inform our program direction, we ongoingly consult with New South Wales government agencies, and what has so far come out of this is, firstly, there was a lack of awareness and understanding. Some government agencies were unsure where to start. what these recycled materials are, and how to preference recycled content. And that was seen to be a nice have. Second, in the decision-making phase of procurement, there was a lack of direction from senior leadership at the time, where requirements were not built into procurement processes, and there was a lack of accountability and compliance check. There was a lack of trust in materials, where there's uncertainty of product performance abilities, and there was a lack of knowledge of risk profiles or difficulty verifying recycled material claims. Adopting recycled material was seen as too difficult, expensive, and slow. If it's difficult to find products and trusted products, recycled material can come at an additional cost, but may also delay projects. Thirdly, New South Wales government agencies found it difficult to tap into learnings of using recycled material, where there was a lack of measuring and report mechanisms, or even scarce opportunities to share learnings to amplify the impact. We took those barriers and developed a program of work to support agencies to overcome them, and I'm going to talk about some of the initiatives that we have done. The True Circular funding is one of the programs of work. To enable a transition to a circular economy, we have been working with government agencies through our True Circular program, a program that aims to stimulate innovation and demand for recycled materials through New South Wales government projects, New South Wales government procurement. We have completed round one of the True Circular funding with 12 New South Wales government agencies that cover some of the most top procurers in New South Wales government. We recently closed round two of the funding that is currently being assessed, and agencies are soon to be informed on the outcome. There's a total of up to $3.2 million available. Here is the list of successful New South Wales government agencies in round one of the True Circular funding, and the type of projects they are working on or have completed. These projects include circularity action plans, to develop and trial software applications, procurement guidelines and frameworks, to conduct feasibility studies, and assessment and verification of recycled material supply chain. Karen Shaw from Bradfield Development Authority will be speaking after me on their True Circular project. One of the agencies is Powerhouse Museum. They are the largest museum group in Australia, covering places like Powerhouse in Ultimo and Parramatta in Sydney. The project aims to develop circular material strategy to build sustainable practices in current and future expeditions at Powerhouse sites. This aims to reduce waste, increase recycled material, increase the use of material more efficiently in expeditions. Another agency is Property Development New South Wales. They are responsible for management and delivery of large-scale or complex real estate projects, transactions, workplace strategy, design, and delivery. This includes the management of New South Wales Government's property portfolio. Their project is developing best practice guidelines to prioritise circularity in office furnishing, furniture, and office ICT equipment across the state. A project like this will help reimagine the use of material and will reduce costs overall. Another interesting agency is New South Wales Ministry of Health. We all may know this one, the System Manager for the New South Wales Public Health System. They are developing a circularity and recycled material action plan to assess the current state of circularity across all New South Wales health agencies to increase the use of recycled material wherever possible. Here are some of those recycled material procurement initiatives to support New South Wales government agencies to preference recycled material. This includes developing what we have called the True Circular Directory, We recognise there is no public directory that informs buyers about existing suppliers of recycled material in New South Wales. This will be a digital platform of recycled material products that serves the New South Wales Government. It aims to have suppliers with recycled material products signed up and be available with a public platform available for everyone to use. This is just a draft prototype on the slide. Where we are at now is a sign-up campaign will be released shortly, and we intend to launch this in mid-2025 this year. To implement the if not, why not basis and report on it, from the 1st of July 2025, New South Wales government agencies are required to preference and report on recycled content for goods and services under Action 22 of the Net Zero Government Operations Policy. This is, in fact, a new measure in the policy. The Net Zero Government Operations Policy encourages New South Wales government agencies to operate more efficiently and save energy and maintenance costs. They also improve environment and health outcomes with the overall main objective of reducing emissions. Otherwise, for the proposed Protection of Environment Policy for Sustainable Construction, consultation closed in April 2025, so it hasn't been finalised yet and is still in draft and consideration phase. This policy aims to promote decarbonisation of infrastructure delivery sector and circular economy in New South Wales. It also requires agencies to preference the use of recycled material in public infrastructure and report on recycled material use. It applies at the thresholds of over $50 million for building sector projects and over $100 million for all other infrastructure types. The last part of my presentation is to look at what support we are giving in the procurement space for government agencies to actually apply this if not, why not basis in their day-to-day. We have identified a lack of knowledge and guidance as a key barrier impacting the implementation of improved environmental sustainability practices in procurement. New South Wales DQ, with significant involvement from New South Wales Government Procurement, developed a guide to environmental sustainable procurement. This was published in December 2024 on the Buy New South Wales website. The guide aims to increase the level of environmental sustainability in the 3 procurement stages: plan, source, and manage for goods and services and construction. The guide aims to help procurement professionals with 3 things: improve the value for money, improve environmental sustainability outcomes, and 3, comply with existing sustainable procurement policies. The guide also has 6 accompanying templates that dive into the detail and ensure that the guide is highly practical to assist procurement professionals. To further support the implementation of environmental sustainability into government procurement, capability uplift has been a top priority. Focused on in-depth training for government procurement and sustainability professionals, strategic learning for procurement executives, and e-learning modules. At the same time, we are looking to work with New South Wales Procurement on integration into whole-of-government procurement processes across New South Wales Government templates and training. We are also establishing a sustainable procurement community of practice for government agencies. Additionally, a technical support service embedded within the New South Wales Government Procurement Service Centre. This will be an ad hoc inquiries related to embedding environmental sustainability into agency procurement processes and systems and integrating environmental sustainability into specific procurement activity. This phase focuses on government procurement, and as part of designing the next phase of procurement guidance, we are considering what this could look like for suppliers and manufacturers. We have also topic-specific guidance aimed at circularity. Our circular design guideline for the built environment, published in 2023, was mentioned quite prevalently in last year's Waste 2024 conference. We are currently developing guidance on understanding recycled material in procurement and a design for deconstruction guideline. Otherwise, New South Wales Government, in collaboration with the Green Building Council of Australia, has developed and published a practical guide to circular procurement for new buildings and major refurbishment. That's a wrap for my presentation, and I want to thank you for listening. Here are my contact details if you want to find out more information or have any questions.
Thank you, Lee Wei. Are there any questions that anyone would like to ask? We have a roving mic up the back. There's one over here. Test, test. Yeah, working now. Oh, this is the roving mic.
Hi, I'm Charlotte from Hawkesbury City Council. Thanks for such a great presentation. My question is, our procurement department, I suppose, is separate from our waste or separate from our sustainability department. How would you encourage a procurement department to take on these guidelines or be invested in this when they might not have the same mind frame as a waste or people that are already in that sort of space?
Yeah, so my colleague works more on the sustainable procurement front, but in terms of my engagement with this project, it's around bringing that community of practice and sort of drawing, I guess, what are the commonalities that they have between a sustainability professional or a waste professional and the procurement professionals as well, and sort of trying to find the champions within the organisation, whether if it comes from the personal level and sort of bringing that out. And there's always at least like one person that's probably quite keen. So sort of championing those people and really letting them sort of, I guess, pursue that as well. But also some of the, I guess, regulations that we have also makes us sort of have to sort of, I guess, uplift that requirement.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions from the floor?
Oh, hi, Michael Neville here from Hornsby Council. Thanks for the presentation. We're doing similar work but in a local government context, and it feels like we're getting exactly the same sort of barriers that are happening in state government and federal government. But I was interested in your if not, why not question, because we're grappling with, okay, within the procurement process, what's going to make people actually consider this sort of stuff and do it, particularly on major projects, you know, not just maybe buying recycled content office paper, although there's even problems at that level nowadays. So with your if not, why not section, what do you do then? So they just say, well, we didn't feel like it, we couldn't source it. Then does someone have to go and review that and give them feedback, or how does that work?
So before the policy wasn't, there was no sort of policy mandate at the time. So from the 1st of July, that's when it's either the 1st of July or the 1st of 2026 of January that it will be implemented. I don't know the details of that. I can get back to you on that one. But I think I guess prior to that, it was around sort of communicating the benefits of it, I guess the long-term benefits of what that could be, whether if it's cost savings, whether if it's reduction of emissions. Yeah, the sustainable procurement guidance that we have released that's publicly available does detail some of those benefits for procurement professionals or sustainability professionals to really see and unpack what are the benefits of that.
Great, thank you. It'll be really good to hear how you go in the future if you can be communicating those learnings.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lee Wei. In the interest of staying on time, I'd like to introduce Karen Shaw, who's our next presenter. Karen is the Manager of Circular Economy Bradfield Development Authority, and she will be talking to us today about using products with recycled content in city builds.
Great, thank you everyone. Good afternoon. I work for a New South Wales government agency. We're called Bradfield Development Authority. We're building a new city in Western Sydney, close to the new airport, and the new city is called Bradfield. So today we're joining from the lands of the Gumbaynggirr people, and what I'm talking about today is really about the sustainable use of resources and how we can use products containing recycled content. And I'd like to acknowledge that the traditional custodians of the land have really cared for our resources, and there's a lot we can learn. I'll be talking about two key kind of products that we developed and two key projects that we undertook as part of the program that Leeway has just talked about, the Choose Circular program, where the New South Wales DQ provided funding to New South Wales government agencies. And it's kind of similar to that question that was just asked from the audience around there are barriers, like how do you procure products that contain recycled content, and how do you determine which products to really focus on? So from my perspective, this was about looking at a city build, so buildings and public spaces as well. And the second project that we undertook through this funding was around helping support local manufacturers. So we have a lot of manufacturing in Western Sydney. We have a lot of manufacturers producing building products. We'd like to use more of those building products so that, you know, we're not transporting products as far to reduce emissions and the like, but also to support our local economy. So the second project was a capability building exercise for local manufacturers. And these projects have just finished wrapping up. And on the last slide, I'll just share the QR code if anyone's interested in seeing both of these resources. They're now available on our website. So this is Bradfield City Centre. It's obviously a render. We're calling this the first city in Australia to be designed and built since Canberra. So it's over 100 years since we've taken a greenfield site and designed and built this from scratch. It's 114 hectares, which is 5 times the size of Barangaroo. It looks a bit different to Barangaroo. Barangaroo has a lot more high-rise buildings, whereas this is mid-rise buildings, so up to around 15 stories high. And it's a medium-density, mixed-use development. So it will be apartment living, like residential, up to about 15,000 residents we're expecting in this precinct. And then the buildings will be built in stages, like city blocks, like maybe the 4 Parramatta Square, if anyone has seen the development in Parramatta, where you have that kind of retail and restaurants on the bottom level, and you have commercial office buildings, but we'll also have residential apartments, hotels, parks and public spaces. And one of the first developments will be a 2-hectare central park. Where we're at the moment is the civil works are underway right now, so the roads and sewers and the like are going in. The first building has been built. It opened about 2 months ago, which is great, a government-funded building with innovation at the heart. And then once the metro station is capped, then we'll be building Central Park. Metro station opens in 2027. So what we were saying was there are just, you know, you think about a city build, there are so many opportunities, there's so many different building products that will be used. Where should we use recycled content? So the first project, our partner was Arup, and they first of all took bills of quantities from previous mixed-use developments, and they mapped out how much of each type of building material will go into building these new buildings and the parks and public spaces. So first of all, we understood the volumes. The next was to say, we know all of these products that are going into the build, but which ones should we really focus on that contain recycled content? So they assessed each of those materials for sustainability criteria, and some of that is listed here. What's the percentage of recycled content that we could utilise? Is it utilising those problematic waste streams that Leeway shared before, you know, textiles, plastics and the like? Are there alternative materials we should be considering instead, like bio-based, maybe straw panels for insulation instead? If using recycled content, would impact the end of life, you know, might be more difficult to separate, and whether or not that's an impact, embodied carbon, ease of implementation, meaning during construction, do you need to use a different type of adhesive, for example, any cost implications, and again, that driver of trying to procure from local manufacturers if possible. So then we produce this resource, and this is for architects, builders, and landscapers. Now, as a government agency, we procure the services of an architect, of a landscaper, of a builder. We don't procure building products ourselves. And so we created this resource to help drive the decision makers, the architects who specify the products, the builders and the landscapers who procure the products. And so that's what this resource is. It's for them, and it's for us to put this in front of them, and each time these key material decisions are made, to make it easier for them to consider products that contain recycled content. That's just the title page. Now it contains 13 different material types, and you can see them listed here. So under facades, we have aluminium cladding, we have clay bricks and concrete masonry, architectural glass. In internal finishes, we have things like nylon carpet and hard floor finishes, plasterboard equivalents, flooring underlay, thermal and acoustic insulation, tiles and terrazzo surfaces, fittings furniture and equipment, plastic furniture, for example, timber like particle board, and then external works, things like the non-pressure pipe work, geofabrics that are used a lot in landscaping, and then rubber softwall surfaces, because we'll be building things like playgrounds as well. So for each of these, there are 3 to 4 slides, and they're to provide that snapshot so that these products are considered. This is what the plasterboard 3 slides look like, so a title page and then 3 slides. So first of all, how is plasterboard typically manufactured? It's manufactured out of gypsum, there's a paper lining. Where does gypsum come from? So a bit of kind of information about how these products are typically manufactured, and then how are they used in a building, and then what are the opportunities to use recycled content. So at the moment, we typically procure plasterboard that contains 2 to 6% recycled content, but there's opportunities to use up to 20% recycled content. There are also other types of materials you could use, and I mentioned before the wheat straw panels as an example. Products are manufactured in Western Sydney and across Australia. So again, looking at where are these products manufactured, what types of priority waste streams they contain, and then what's the end of life scenario, for example, product stewardship. And then for each of these products, we also have a case study. In this case, it was a Woolworths store refurbishment in Blacktown, LGA, that used a product that's manufactured out of Tetra Paks in Western Sydney, and that company is called Saveboard. The second slide for each of these materials talks about considerations like acoustic performance, fire safety, durability, and the like, and those impacts, the things that you need to consider during design, procurement, and installation or construction. And the final slide gives a list of example suppliers. Now, this is when we met with builders and architects, they said that this would be really helpful. They'd like to have a list of at least 5 suppliers that they could consider. They already have their typical supply chain, but they are interested in alternative products. And so we did preference products that are manufactured in Western Sydney when we created this guidance document, but we really did look to include Australian manufacturers. And you can see there that there are some really great products being manufactured in Australia already that contain recycled content. This slide also includes things like standards and the like. So that's the first resource that we've developed. We really hope that it's utilised a lot by industry. And then the second thing that I wanted to share was the insights from building product manufacturers. So in November last year, we did a survey and we received over 100 responses from manufacturers and industry bodies. We asked questions about using recycled content in their products and certifying those products. So we said, could you add or increase recycled content in your products? Now, as you can see there, 50% said yes, they could. They could increase the amount of recycled content they're putting in their products. The businesses that said no were actually quite interesting. Some of those said that they already use a lot of recycled content, like steel product manufacturers are using scrap steel, plastic pipe manufacturers are using a lot of pipe, and cladding manufacturers are often using a lot of reconstituted timber. And others said that they couldn't because of regulatory side of things, or things like carpet manufacturers. If they use textiles, recycled textiles, it can change the strength of the textile. So things like that are sometimes the barriers to why they can't increase their use of recycled content. Now, of those that could, we said, what are the barriers? Now, I'll go into a little more detail on that lack of source recycled material. I've already mentioned product performance in terms of, that regulatory side of things can be an issue, and increases in cost. And then it's quite interesting to see that they think that their customers do not perceive added value, and we think that this is going to change as, things like this, government agencies preferring recycled content. We think that this will increase the demand for these types of products. With regards to the source, I thought it was interesting when we asked this question, and we asked an open-ended question about this. Now, concrete manufacturers said that they're having difficulty getting suitable recycled aggregates, and glass wool insulation manufacturers said that they need more recycled glass cullet, and plastic pipe manufacturers said that they want more pipe offcuts. So they're just some of the examples. And one of the things that we'll be doing on our next building site in Bradfield is to better set up that way of source separating on the site for reuse and recycling. So we'll be looking ahead to say what products are going to be delivered to that site and installed on the site, and do we need something like different bulker bags or this kind of collection cage like they've done in Queensland, to just make sure that we're better capturing and keeping those offcuts so that they're not contaminated and can be reused. And what I noticed when I went to the first building site was that there was a skip bin, and it was a lot of the waste materials were being thrown into the one skip bin. When it went to the resource recovery site, the larger pieces were pulled out and did end up being recycled, but any smaller pieces didn't make it through that kind of separation system and ended up in landfill. So we do think that we could do better on site. The last component was just around which sustainability certifications should building product manufacturers go for. Now, it's really complex. You've got EPDs, you've got GECA, Global Green Tag, FSC Mix, and they're very expensive as well. And so particularly the smaller manufacturers were saying, which certification system should they go for, and are their customers asking for it? So we asked what the barriers were, and a lot said the cost to certify, including the cost to obtain the right documentation from their suppliers to really verify the source of that recycled feedstock. That was one of the key, and we all know how important that is with the traceability side of things. The kind of staff skill set within the organisations as well. And then this it's come out again with this customers do not perceive added value, lack of awareness by customers. And so we were surprised to see that, but we do think that will change, particularly if projects are going for things like Green Star ratings or IS ratings that award additional credits if you can prove and if your products have certain sustainability credentials. So that was just some of the feedback from that manufacturer survey that we did. And so the way that we kind of addressed that was by running a webinar in March this year, and the recording of that webinar's on our website. That brings me to the end of my presentation. I just wanted to explain to you how our agency is going about kind of developing resources to help drive these decisions and ultimately select really great sustainable building products as we build the new city. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Karen? I can't really see anything from up here, but I can see a hand over there.
Testing. Thanks, Karen. Can you tell us, do you reuse PVC piping or do you recycle it? Because as far as I'm aware, there's nowhere that we can recycle PVC. So just wondering what you do there.
Okay, so my understanding was that PVC piping for non-pressurised pipes can be taken back, reground and reused to manufacture more PVC pipes. That was my understanding.
And-
From talking to organisations like Piper, Plastic Industry Association. Yeah, we're not looking at reuse. They explained to me that a lot of the time on a building site, first of all, the plumbers and electricians go in and they lay the pipes, and then they'll put the conduit through, and that's sticking up. And so they leave that kind of sticking up. They lay the concrete foundations, and then they come back, run the conduit through, and they just cut off that sticking up piece of pipe. And they said that that is just such an easy, like, no-brainer kind of opportunity to better collect that at that time, not throw it into the mixed skip bin, send it back to Vinidex and Iplex and other kind of pipe manufacturers, and they want that back because they'll just grind that up and use that again to remanufacture.
Oh,
So
good.
that's what I've heard.
Great, thank you.
So, can I get you to ask that question again? Sorry, we've just got people online and they wouldn't have heard it.
Sandra Thomas, Battery Stewardship Council. You mentioned you've produced that flyer. So is there a contractual obligation for those engaged in building to actually use some of those suppliers that are in that manual or listed in that manual with mandated recycling content?
I guess when you say contractually mandated, it's a bit similar to kind of the terminology that Leeway used before as well, that preferencing products that contain recycled content on an if not, why not basis, and that is the type of terminology we're using. So when we put out a tender for an architect to design a building, and then when we put out a tender for, a builder to construct a building, for example, we're putting in there some really strong sustainability targets. We have a sustainability and resilience strategy, and it talks about that we want these them to preference, and it's not just recycled content, we want them to preference reuse, preference low carbon materials, preference locally manufactured items where possible, and preference recycled content. So unfortunately, we are not contractually mandating that, but we are pushing for that preference. And then when we receive the tender responses, when we compare the sustainability component, which is weighted, then we will be looking at their responses and making sure that they implement what they're promising during their tender.
Hi, Ryan from Planet Arc. Do architects see the perceived benefits, or do they have any incentives to encompass recycled content in their designs?
I think that if they're going for particular, even like Green Star ratings, for example, that then have different kind of credits related to material selection and leadership credits as well. That's one kind of place where architects will be pushing to use particular sustainability rated products. So that's where we think that the architects are kind of, that was a question, wasn't it? Kind of what are they incentivised? How are they incentivised to doing that? Yeah, I think it's particularly Green Star is a really key rating, and for every building that we're building in Bradfield City Centre, we're looking we're targeting Green Star, 5-star or 6-star where possible. So I think that that's kind of the way that we incentivise the architects. Probably had time.
Hi there, Andrew Ward-Harvey from Northern Beaches Council. This is a great resource and something we're looking at a similar offering. just wondering, there's quite in-depth information that you've got about each material type, which is great. Where you're getting that information from, and also in terms of sort of listing different commercial entities, how that works within procurement, the procurement process.
Okay, so in developing this resource, I mentioned that the consultant that we used at the time was Arup, and first of all, a lot of this was engagement with architects and engineers that have worked on similar projects. So there was like a lot of consultation that was done. Once we developed the framework for this guidance document, we then went and met with each industry association. So I mentioned PIPA before, which is the Plastic Pipe Association, but we also met with the association involved in insulation, in the tyre side of things for the rubber sports surfaces and the like, so that we could really make sure that this was technically correct. And also like Think Brick, who do the brick masonry. And a lot of the time they did say that there were some nuances, that we didn't quite get the terminology right, or we need to include different standards. So that's why we think that this resource is like pretty good, because we went and made sure that we met with all of those industry associations who then, represent their members and represent building product manufacturers. So that's kind of how we developed the resource. In terms of listing product manufacturers, I do agree that that can be risky, and once this New South Wales government's recycled product directory is up and running, and it has a lot of building manufacturers on there, we might potentially get rid of those pages, but at the moment, when the architects and builders said that they really need a list of local suppliers, that's why we included them. When we met with the industry bodies, we did say, are we missing anyone? Not just their members, but key players that are manufacturing those products. And so they did help us increase the list. And then we've just included terminology around this being an example list, and would welcome other manufacturers to contact me, and we can add them to the list as we go.
Thank you, Karen. That was fabulous. Our next speaker is Rebecca Randall, Resource Recovery Project Lead with Albury City Council. Rebecca will be talking to us about pioneering sustainable solutions, the RAMJO Circular Economy Data Portal Trial.
G'day everyone, I'm Rebecca Randall. I'm the project lead of the Regional Resource Recovery team at Albury City Council. We support 13 councils across the Riverina and Murray waste groups. We cover 120,000 square kilometres of geographical area, and our councils all vary in population, access to resources and priorities. I'm relatively new to the waste sector compared to a lot of you in this room. I'm coming up to my second year, so I've been on a very steep learning curve, but I'd like to just tell you a little bit about my background. So I grew up in regional Victoria in a small town called Gurumbat. I'm sure none of you have heard of that place. It's a one street, one pub, one school town. You go to work, you go to school, and the highlight of the week is going to the footy at the weekend. I left there to go to Melbourne to work for state government for many years, rolling out financial systems. Then I moved back to regional Victoria to work for the local water authority, and then I spent the last 7 years before this role as a self-employed freelance photographer and filmmaker. And it's great working for yourself. You take annual leave whenever you like. However, business is tough working for yourself. You don't have guaranteed income, and you are having to constantly be ahead of the game to be competitive against other businesses. So I guess I have a bit of empathy there for other businesses, and obviously circular economy has a big focus on working with businesses. Hopefully I can do this right. Oh, thank you. Am I doing... Something's happening. right? Oh, here we go. Should be entertaining. So I'd just like to acknowledge Transport New South Wales, who provided the funding for this project, and also New South Wales EPA for supporting me to be here today. So I just want to talk to you about circular economy in a regional context, because obviously that's very important to me. But, you know, in the region and remote rural areas, transport is a major issue, and some of our towns might be 100 kilometres apart, nothing in between, just a great big long road, sometimes a dirt road. So transport is a major issue. We have limited access to transport options and the costs are very high. We also have lack of infrastructure. Talking about FOGO, some of our towns are over 100 kilometres from a processing facility. So it's not that easy to roll out some of these things for our communities. Our councils sometimes have very limited resources. Some of them have under 40 staff and a 50% vacancy rate because they can't get people in the roles. And sometimes one person might be doing the role of 3 or 4 different positions. There's some old-fashioned attitudes. Sometimes education's low, and why should we change? We've been doing this forever. Nothing's wrong, it's not broke, why fix it? And sometimes landfill can be cheaper than recycling. So there are some barriers there. And I guess the reason I want to talk about my background as a regional Australian while I'm in the room in front of state agencies who are metropolitan based, it'd be really great to actually have you guys come out sometimes. And I'm not talking about Albury or Wagga, I'm talking about get right out into those one street, one pub, one school towns. Because our council staff, you know, they live and work in that environment. There's really very little separation between work and their personal life. So when we're implementing legislation and changes, it'd be nice to have them in mind and have the appropriate access to support. Oh, thank you so much. So I guess also talking about barriers and the business community, how can we remove all of these barriers for them and make it much easier for them to include recycled content in their manufacturing? So there is some technology out there which is fabulous. The Aspire platform, a lot of people have mentioned that to me and I checked it out. And some of the functionality is really great. Again, however, there are some limitations, and unfortunately what I found is this is only as good as the businesses and organisations that subscribe to it, and there's a high cost for that subscription. But also, you know, when I went to look for some material in the Albury-Wodonga area, there was just nothing. In fact, there was nothing beyond Melbourne and Sydney, and I think above as well. So it just wouldn't work for us being based in the region. So we do need an alternative if we want to try and make something happen in rural and regional Australia. So we were given the opportunity to trial a data portal. This had been funded by a $1 million grant through the Transport for New South Wales Innovation Fund. It initially had been trialled in Western Parkland, Sydney, and they were looking for a regional area to move on to in their stage 2. Pecklet Software is the developer, and basically they have purchased data sets of all the businesses in the Ramjo, so the Riverina and Murray region, utilising the Australian Business Register, Google, and I believe also the bin trim data was also provided for them to put all this together. Our role was testing the system, also validating some of the data that was on there, and providing some recommendations that we might be able to enable this software to be used in the future. So it is a predictive model based on 1 million businesses in Europe. So the Pecklet developer explained it to me that if there's a bakery in France with 10 employees, they're probably likely to have a very similar waste output to a bakery in Albury with 10 employees. And so using that model, that's transferred to all the businesses in our region. So there were some challenges in validating the data. There were issues with registered versus actual businesses. So, you know, a business name might not be what we know it as in the, I was going to say the yellow pages, Google. Yeah, addresses were also an issue because business might be registered somewhere else. So there was a little bit of work in going through all of that, but hopefully we have been able to support the developer to roll out any future stages with a bit more ease. We have a couple of case studies. So we were reached out from a timber laminate company down in Benalla in regional Victoria, searching for pallets. They were wanting a really large volume of pallets, 10,000 tonnes a year. So we were able to set them up on the portal, and they were able to go in and independently search for that material themselves, which took away us having to find that material for them. Another example was GoTerra, who were looking for material to establish a new location, so they were able to go into the portal and have a look for organic material and find locations that they would be able to set up and be viable. I'm going to attempt a demonstration. It's pre-recorded, but no narrative, so I'll have a go at doing that. So I'm scared. Is this just going to play? Maybe if I click again. Something's happening. Great. Okay, so there's the data portal. That there is the Ramjo region, and all those blue dots are, I guess, the major towns. And as we drill down further, you can see those smaller blue dots are individual businesses. As I drill down further, you can see when I click on one of these dots, it shows you the name of the business and also what their waste outputs are, or their predicted waste outputs. As you can see, there's predicted paper and cardboard of 1.8 tonnes per annum. So there's just a few examples there. And there's a number of subtypes under all of those waste materials. I think I'm going to go over to another town. That was Albury. This is Corowa. Again, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar down on the border. But on this occasion, I think I'm going to demonstrate where we can search by material type. So as you can see there on the left, we've got organics, and then you can drill down further to kitchen and waste. And I've just clicked food waste there. So just down the bottom, I think I'm going to reveal another little panel which actually highlights who are the largest contributors there to waste. So the Corowa RSL Club, most people down our way would know of that. It's a pretty big venue, so it's no surprise they have 13 tonnes a year of food waste. So just going back out, I think I am going to demonstrate. So you can see here we've got existing takers of waste. So these, producers of waste, but we do also have businesses listed on the portal who will take waste. So I'm just going to unclick there and demonstrate some of the businesses listed as taking waste. So I'm going to show you a organics facility. And over in Wagga Wagga, hello to my Re-Rock friends, we've got Carbon Mate, who you then can click on their website and check them out. So they take a lot of our organic material in the region. We also have, I think, an example of a metal recycler down in Corowa again. So I guess businesses, you know, if they're looking for a home for their waste, they would be able to get onto the portal and actively and independently search for this information themselves. And all of the contact information is there. So there's also potential takers. So these businesses aren't confirmed as taking waste, but they have the potential to. So in this instance, these are some of the plastic manufacturers in Albury-Wodonga. And so they're listed here. So I guess, again, it would not restrict a business making contact and finding out whether they're in a position to recycle any plastic. Plastic Forests there, yes, they're doing great work actually, turning plastic into garden edging and the like. So they are actually an existing taker of waste. Just a quick final demonstration of the heat maps there. So I guess if industry is coming in to have a little look and go, oh, where is there a big volume of a particular waste material, this just gives you an instant glance of what's there. So that is, I guess, just a little highlight reel of the portal. So I think just some of the benefits of this model to date is the unrestricted access to data. As I said, removing barriers for businesses I think is really important. If we had this available to all businesses, there'd be no reason why they couldn't get in and independently source this information. It also provides opportunities for industry to identify possibilities. So hopefully something like this could encourage more collaboration. There could be some potential risks, and we're just thinking that perhaps there might be some issues around privacy, and whether we would need to look at some mitigation options such as privacy controls or anonymous data. So I guess following our trial, some of the recommendations were that obviously the waste and manufacturing doesn't stop at Ramjo's doorstep. You know, if we can expand this to the southern parts of New South Wales in the first instance, and we've already been having some discussions with our neighbouring joint organisations, which is very exciting, that would be beneficial. We really identified that we need resources to engage with the businesses to not only educate them further about circular economy, but if we could onboard them to the platform and give them some, you know, tips and tricks and how to drive it, I think that would be worthwhile. And also we recognise that the portal is in its early stages and there's potentially some functionality that could be brought in to enhance it even further, where maybe businesses are communicating directly with each other via the portal, and that way we could maybe measure a little bit of that activity as well. So, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Hi, that was a really interesting presentation. Thank you. You mentioned when you gave the demonstration about the largest contributors of waste, there was the example of the tonnages of the RSL.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious how that data was captured, whether it was self-reported or if something was obtained from collection contractors.
So it is only an estimation. As I said before, it's a predictive model, this platform. So that information is based on perhaps another club of a similar employee size in Europe, and it's a prediction based on that. Whether in the future we have the ability to actually confirm waste volumes, I think would be really great. Or even the businesses go in and independently update that information. But at this stage, it's just an estimate.
So I'm just wondering what the cost would be of applying that sort of model in a metropolitan context, and I guess what's behind that predictive model. So I mean, we've got AI and all the rest of it now. I'm just wondering, you know, is there enough public source data out there about companies, you know, listed in one's area, which would just could just sort of spit out that data now?
Well, in terms of cost, this particular platform is available to us till the end of July 2025. So we did receive some pricing to expand to our neighbouring areas, and it is based on the number of businesses in the particular area. I can't recall the exact amounts, but I can certainly offline that for you if you like. But, you know, in terms of comparing to the subscription for the Aspire platform, it's actually no comparison. It was much cheaper for us to onboard this information, and potentially refresh it, you know, biannually than it would be to go onto the Aspire platform.
Perhaps my name's Ash from the state government. Perhaps a continuation on from your neighbouring LGAs. Is there opportunity for other local governments, say City of Coffs Harbour as an example, to have a look at the platform to somewhat implement that into this community? Are you at that stage? Is that part of the plan?
Yes. So I believe Snowy Valleys Council wanted to get on board, and they have now done so. So I guess our discussions with those neighbouring JOs has probably been part of a bigger project where we would engage, you know, have resources for business engagement as well. But certainly, you know, onboarding your data, your council's data right now, I think the software developer would be able to support you to do that.
Thanks.
Our fourth speaker today is Kimberly Hope. Kimberly is the Waste and Resource Recovery Consultant for Tonkin and Taylor, and her presentation is Challenges in Circular Economy Planning Lessons for Aotearoa.
Well, hello everybody. Based on the title of my presentation, you all know I'm based in New Zealand, but working for Tonkin and Taylor, we've been working both in Australia and in New Zealand, so I think it provides a good place to compare them both and get some learnings. And in previous roles, I worked in local government in New Zealand as well, so I've got some practical experience in that space. So just thought to start with, you know, what is a good circular economy strategy? So to me, it is something that has a very clear vision. It really should be evidence-based. It'd be great if it can be really connected to your community or your stakeholders. Of course, it needs to be practical and actionable, and enable that systems change or contribute to that. But the successful development and implementation of a circular economy strategy requires a proactive approach to addressing potential challenges along the way. So this presentation combines insights from our experience in the private and public sector in Australia and New Zealand, with a particular focus on strategies that we've employed to overcome some of these key barriers to success. In our experience, while each organisation is unique, there are a lot of common threads that have underpinned our success in developing strategies. So based on that, I picked kind of 6 common challenges that we come across, being developing a shared understanding of a circular economy, aligning to broader organisational priorities, identifying the level of influence that you have, demonstrating return on investment, practical action, and flexibility. So I will cover off on those 6 points. So the circular economy, as we've kind of heard this morning, is multi-level and very complex. It is a system or an economy which is, very holistic, and it's actually not just about the waste sector, it's about, the economy more broadly. And within that system, of course, there's lots of different networks, like the Resource Recovery Network is an example of one of those, so you can look at it at that network level. It can be also looked at within your organisation, and of course at that individual level. And there's lots of internal and external kind of considerations that you kind of need to consider in those things. So it's really good when you are starting to develop your strategy to think about developing a shared understanding of what a circular economy actually is. The importance of internal buy-in in that process is really contingent on that understanding, and you can really look at how what the circular economy means within your organisation or within your community as you are working through that initial stage of your plan. So one way to develop a shared understanding is to look at your broader organisation or community priorities and aligning with those. And just to draw on an example, some work that we have done with 3 councils in Taranaki, which is in the North Island of New Zealand. They were developing their waste management minimisation plan, which is another kind of word for a circular economy plan. When they were thinking about what that plan, would be, what their vision and their strategic framework was going to be from a circular economy, they of course had the circular economy shift that is bandied around. They had the New Zealand Waste Strategy and Emissions Reduction Plan kind of drivers from that national policy perspective, but they also wanted to really incorporate their broader council visions, so their specific council visions and broader community outcomes that they already had within the 3 councils, and bring that into that strategic framework. And then alongside that, a really genuine focus on understanding Te Ao Māori, which is the Māori worldview, and embedding that within their strategic framework. So in doing that, they were able to develop like a strategic framework that kind of set the scene for where they wanted to go in the future. Alongside that, aligning with priorities, a really key factor in success is stakeholder engagement. That helps to generate that shared understanding. Again, coming back to the Taranaki example that we had, that I just referenced in the previous slide, when the 3 councils were developing their circular economy thinking, they wanted to do some real genuine engagement with their community, and did a really comprehensive kind of stakeholder engagement process throughout the plan development at key points. And this ranged from general surveys of their community to specific focus workshops with key stakeholders. And it started with asking, where are we in our current situation? How well do you think we're doing? Where are the gaps, where are the issues, where are the opportunities, and talking to them. They also co-designed kind of vision statements, like where do we want to be, and actually co-designed action plans. So did a lot of work over 12 months engaging with all their different communities, and included a kind of a separate stream with the iwi, which is like the local tribes in Taranaki, saying what from a Te Ao Māori perspective, what is really important to you in the waste space. So this was, of course, a real co-design kind of stakeholder engagement, so really full on and high level, and took a lot of time. But actually it was a good opportunity to also generate a kind of a shared understanding of what a circular economy meant. It was also a good opportunity to start telling the story about where we were at in terms of the circular economy journey that we were on, and getting an understanding of where everybody else was at so that we could align all of that together in a plan. So it actually made for a lot of upskilling of all of our stakeholders, and everyone kind of really coming together and generating ownership over the plan when it was finally produced at the end of the process. Of course, not everyone has the resource and the time to do some full-on kind of stakeholder engagement within their organisation or their community. So it is quite good when you're starting a project to think, how much time and resource do I have? I want to maximise that as much as possible to get a feel for my stakeholders in my community. So aligning your level of engagement with the capacity of being able to deliver that in your community. The other thing to just be really conscious of is the level of influence that you have in that circular economy space. Of course, it is a system, and it's very overwhelming to think, well, I can't change the whole system, so what can I do? And just being really deliberate in that process. So I've just got a couple of examples around how we've kind of approached that from a local government versus an organisational level. A project that we've been working on in Hastings and Napier, which is in the North Island of New Zealand on the east coast, was looking at that circular economy and agreeing, what are the things that we can really influence. And of course, with the council, it is traditionally offering that resource recovery infrastructure and services, collection services, transfer stations, things like that. But of course, in that use and repair kind of thing, you can help your community to understand reducing their waste. You can also support local stuff through local policy, make bylaws that will drive certain changes in a community. You can advocate to your government, for instance, or you can be a leader through your procurement strategies, which is kind of what we've seen in some of the presentations today. And of course, collaboration, sharing the stuff that you do know in terms of waste data and the opportunities and stuff that are out there. The other kind of perspective, I guess, is within your organisation. The level of influence here is you've probably got a lot more influence on what your organisation can do, and you will have a really good understanding of all the kind of material flows and stuff. And just an example of that, we're a part of a project with One and Water to do their circular economy roadmap, and we did all the material flows and generated that solid foundation of understanding around, and then they could identify some true, real actions that they could focus on going forward. The next key thing is to kind of demonstrate that there will be a tangible return on investment for your circular economy initiatives. To address the challenge of quantifying the potential impact of circular economy initiatives, action planning processes should be carefully aligned with kind of your SMART targets. Targets are really important to kind of set that roadmap. What do we want to achieve? And that gives you a good, clear roadmap for implementation. It also is really great for telling that story, about, where we've kind of come from, where we are now, and then what impact will these actions have on where we're going in the future. And this graph has come from the Taranaki example I referred to earlier in my presentation. They've been on their journey for a while. So the initial kind of blue line is their previous plan and what actions they implemented in their last plan. So you could see that from the local government perspective, they made some real impact. So it's like, actually, we're doing quite well, and actually we want to carry this on, and these are some actions that we can do in the next 6 years. And then looking forward, if we continue on this path, we're going to achieve, this amount of reduction in landfill. So presenting that story with where you've come from, what you want to do, and where you think you're going to head is really important. The other purpose of targets, of course, is being able to monitor your progress. And this is key to demonstrating that you are actually making some progress on your action and actually demonstrating that the value for money or the value in investing in those actions. The next thing that is really important, I think, is having practical and effective actions in your plans. So that if you pull together all of that evidence, that background data, you're able to analyse, where we're currently at, what issues, gaps, opportunities do we have going forward, and then you can identify your priority areas where you can take specific action. Once you've kind of got that, it's really good to look at a combination of key drivers for change. And at that kind of simple level, we've kind of identified 3 things that you kind of need to do in combination to have success in the implementation of your actions. And one is policy, infrastructure, and education. So if you don't have all 3 of those, then it's likely that the action that you want to make is not going to really have the impact that you want. For example, you might want to change your collection to add FOGO or, glass or whatever it is. But if you just roll out the service without telling anyone about it, of course, people are going to go, what's this? Why am I doing it? And they're not going to engage. So you need to support that with education. And also you might want to support it with a local bylaw saying, actually, we don't want green waste or FOGO in our landfill bins, so we're going to ban that. That's just an example of how you kind of have to combine all those things together to get your successful action. And then you can present that in not specific actions so as much, but a program-based action plan. So your program is like commercial waste. So this is our issue. We want construction and demolition waste to be managed better. So you've got a program of actions under that will use all of those different drivers to pull a successful action plan that you can implement. And it's really clear and practical. And so everyone knows exactly what needs to be done. The last point is around flexibility. And of course, we are in evolving and changing policy environments, and it's something that we just kind of have to get used to. And so, of course, it's really important that we incorporate that flexibility of what's coming in the future into our plans so they don't become redundant like next week or next year. They can last a reasonable amount of time and give you that time to actually implement those actions. So what we've done, I think we did this with the council in Australia, is kind of looked at the strategic context and understood it, looking at all the political, economic, social, technological and legal and environmental factors, and identifying those things that are out of our control and that are in our control, and incorporating that into the context of your action development so that you can have a plan that lasts for a reasonable amount of time. That's just a very quick overview, but I think if you are planning to review or develop your circular economy plan, some of the key things that are really good to do at the start of your project is seek advice on the process. I mean, we're very happy to chat to anyone about the scope, even if the work is not coming our way, and just because we want your plans to be implementable and relevant. Also allow that time for a common understanding. If you can do that, you generate that buy-in, whether it's within your organisation, within your community, and then everyone kind of takes ownership if they've been involved in it, and it becomes a lot more easy to build on that and create some momentum. And it's really important to gather data to inform your story and to tell your story well. So one of the really effective things in a plan is being able to communicate to people, get them on the same page as you, and then everyone can move forward with their actual implementation. And I think that's it. Any questions? Yay.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to invite our 4 speakers up to up here to take a seat up here. We've got some time for questions. I think it was great to hear four very different stories, spanning procurement policy, leadership in planning and building design, providing access to reliable data to achieve sustainable outcomes, which is close to our heart at APC, and lessons learnt in the circular economy planning space. So if there's any questions that you'd like to ask our panellists while they're here, please raise your hand. And I don't know how we're going to work this with one mic, but I'm sure we can make it work.
Thanks. Just a question for Rebecca. Were there any legalities around or issues around using business data without, sharing business data through that system, that database?
I'm thinking not, because it's already publicly available, on the Australian Business Register and Google. We did access bin trim data, which I'm not sure how visible that is. But in saying that, I'm not sure what aspects of that is included on the platform. But certainly that other information is already publicly available, so I don't anticipate there's any issues there. It's just whether or not they would like that connected to the estimated waste output, whether that will be an issue. I guess that's just something we have to navigate as time goes on. There could be, but I mean, we haven't encountered that yet. But we anticipate that it's a possible risk, so I guess it's just something we have to be mindful of.
Up the back, yeah.
Hi, this is a question for Karen. My name's Megan from Rerock in the Riverina Eastern region. I'm really interested in the use of recycled and the growth of recycled building materials, and I think it's a really exciting prospect. Just married to a tradesman, so I'm just asking what the response from builders and all of those other stakeholders in construction has been to the use of those materials. And also just an additional additive was, have you seen a growth in inquiry around different types of products being presented to you as well?
I'll probably get Karen to stand up to the microphone. It might be easier.
Definitely. I guess from our perspective, we haven't we haven't heard of any issues with using particular products. In our first building, the carpet tiles contain recycled content, and we're using some of those ceramic tiles in the end-of-trip facilities that incorporate like tiles and the like. Now, one issue that we did have with those was that we wanted to make sure that they all matched, and in the micro factory that you might have heard about, sometimes the textiles, because they're coming from different places, we might not have the right quantity and they might be a bit mixed matched. So that was one of the kind of issues that the architect and builder worked together with the micro factory to make sure that those colours matched and that we had the right quantities. But the installation of those was not an issue, and we didn't hear any issues there. In terms of kind of from a tradies perspective, another colleague that's doing a Choose Circular project is also looking at what products are available in places like Bunnings, because a lot of tradies go to Bunnings to purchase products. And she's looking at the products that could be used in maintenance of housing, so social housing, and what products are available, kind of easily accessible. And they haven't had any issues with using those products, and it's just whether or not those products are readily available. So that's the project she's undertaking.
Hello, Sharon Jamieson from the South Australian EPA. That was Karen, wasn't it? Karen, another question. Do you know about the VOCs and everything that have been given off by using this recycled mishmash of products, which is excellent, but yeah, how healthy is it to live in? Thanks.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that is part of the recycled material guidance document. On that page that talked about that kind of durability, fire safety, the bottom one was actually about like VOCs and the chemical side of things, and some of those did identify you would need to look further into whether or not there are like leaching or issues and the like. But I guess the kind of guidance is always to look at the product data sheets and make sure that they're not containing any of those chemicals. Yeah, that's the response.
Any final questions? One thing I'd like to note is, especially with the procurement policy, Gail this morning, and you would have been in that session where she asked people to put their hands up for those companies that do procure products with recyclable content, and very few hands went up in the crowd. So I think while we're all in the business of waste and while we're all in the business of trying to recover resources and reduce waste going to landfill, I think it's very important that we practice what we preach and that we start looking to suppliers of sustainable and recyclable products, as well as our own actions in our own workplaces. One last call for questions? No? I'd like to thank the panel. Lee Wai, Karen, Rebecca and Kimberly. I think it was 4 great presentations, each very different, each with great lessons to learn, and I really enjoyed listening to you. Thank you.